So there are then two models, the professional coach and then all of us learning basic skills. And today, coaches are also working in diverse places. They're working in medical fitness centers and health clubs. They're working in cardiac rehab. They're working in physician practices. They have private practice. Some blend yoga classes with wellness coaching. Some blend personal training with wellness coaching. So it's being used in very diverse ways. And similarly, providers are learning these skills across the whole spectrum of mental health, occupational therapy, physical therapy. I co-authored a CME program for doctors at Harvard Medical School teaching basic coaching skills. So it really has, wherever people are talking about lifestyle as a medicine, there's opportunity for coaching. And my original idea was that putting the physician and the coach and the healthcare team together would be the best we could do to help people, because the physicians and healthcare providers, even when you only have a short few minutes, you can be a very profound catalyst. You can actually go two ways. You can be a very profound catalyst, or you can deflate somebody's interest in going forward. And those are precious moments to move the compass towards, I want to do something new. And I think that when we set up the provider visits to lay the ground for the coaching relationship, we have the best that we could offer. So we need credible coaches, a solid theoretical foundation, and then the evidence to come. We now do have several textbooks of coaching theories and practice, so we're not without. And these are all in the last 5 or 6 years. There's another one that just came out recently. So most of the work to apply theory to coaching is fairly recent. We have a long list of theories that we build on. The reason that the Institute of Coaching got started is that I led a team that created a theory for the intuitive dance of coaching, because that is what I consider the peak moments in coaching, when the insight occurs and what is happening in that dynamic. One of my collaborators was Carol Kaufman, who's now the director of the Institute. So this may be the only new theory that coaches have brought to the world. In terms of the literature, there is some, and it's small, and it's trailing the latest in coaching techniques. But today we have 16 randomized studies and a selection of other reports. And Beth Frades and I have a paper that's about to be published in the American Journal of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation that has reviewed the literature and concluded that coaching alone is effective across a number of areas: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, asthma, cancer, pain, with cancer survivors, weight loss, and also ADD. So a small start, but we're on the way. I want to just take a side trip to think about what are we looking for as measures of sustainable change, to get you thinking about what you're looking for in your clients and patients. In healthcare, we focus on measuring numbers, and we always will. We need to measure, whether it's weight or waist girth or hypertension or A1Cs or fasting blood glucose. Those are all indicators that someone's health is in a particular state. The challenge with those is that they change quickly, and they don't measure sustainability. Obviously you can measure them out 2 years and say it's sustainable, but they don't predict sustainability. So they're benchmarks, but they're not enough. What drives sustainability are other things. So people often need new skills. They have not learned to regulate their emotions around eating junk food. They haven't learned how to exercise in a way that fits into their schedules. So there are a whole new set of skills people need. They need to establish new habits, and we have a number of metrics for measuring those. The big new domain really are those capacities and resources that people need to build that predict sustainable change, and I will tell you about a few later. But there are things like, if you're not mindful and self-aware and observing yourself, if you can't observe yourself in change, you're not learning and harvesting from what you learn. If you don't have the drive you need, the self-motivation, you're not likely to have a sustainable behavior. So there's a number of good indicators that we can look at that start to tell us. Now, you will all know when someone's changed for good. You can see it in front of you. We all have a sense when someone is talking a different game, their energy's different, they look different, you can say this is likely to last. We're all able to make that judgment call. But if we can all agree on measures that predict that, that's going to help us be able to track sustainability. So then let's talk about a few mechanisms. So I've broken it into 4 mechanisms of action of coaching. The first is that and I've just had a meeting with Richard Boyatzis. Do people know who he is at Case Western, just down the road? So he's a psychologist at the Weatherhead School of Management who studies emotional intelligence, relational dynamics, coaching dynamics, and so this notion, like in therapy, that a relationship is a basis for our brains work better when we are in a healthy, growth-promoting relationship. So that's the first thing, is the design of the relationship. The second and the third are what I call the twin engines of change. People need to want to change, so they need to be motivated, and it has to come from themselves, and they have to believe they can do it. And those are the 2 simple ingredients: I want to and I can. And if we can, and those things need to be recharged every day. And so those are the things that help propel people forward. And then the last is the process itself. What happens? What goals get set? How are people accountable? How do they deal with setbacks, and the sort of, what happens over time, kind of like, the way we run organizations where we have projects and goals and plans. People work well with those kinds of structured projects. So let's talk about a couple of client examples as I walk you through these mechanisms. So we have Teresa, who's age 46, pre-diabetic, BMI of 35, has tried most New York Times bestseller diets and many types of exercise. She knows food labels inside out. She can count calories, she knows how much protein she's getting, but she struggles because she can't stick to a plan, loves sweets, and really has never learned to like exercise. Then we have Dave, age 52, with high cholesterol, hypertension, family history of heart disease, BMI of 32, a lot of work stress and responsibility, has a tendency to be a weekend warrior, so when he works out intensively on the weekends. He has never read a food label. He has no idea what the ratio of fats and proteins and how many calories he's eating. And I recently wrote a couple of articles with Jim Gavin around the concept we're putting forward as BQ, body intelligence. The idea that you are, in fact, aware of what your body is telling you. If you've had a bowl of oatmeal and an egg and a piece of fruit, how you feel at 10:30 in the morning is very different than if you had a pastry. And so Dave doesn't have good BQ. He has never really noticed how he feels when he engages in different health behaviors. So coming back then to the design of this relationship, I'm going to touch on 4 things, which is very incomplete, but I just want to touch on a few things that I hope will be helpful. First is mindfulness. Second is self-empathy, autonomy, and the insights. So the first main principle in my new book that's coming out, that this is based on ADD and ADD research, is that most of us walk around with a fair amount of negative frenzy going on in our brains at any one time. And it can be low-level static and noise, or it can be very loud because you're very worried about a particular thing that's going on. And what we now know is that this frenzy impairs our prefrontal cortex function, and we can't focus very well. And so if we want our clients to get focused and get clear on where they're going, we need to tame the frenzy. So the first step is to create a space, like an oasis, with a client that's calm and unfrenzied, which means we have to calm ourselves down and find our own ways to bring our frenzy down, because if we add our frenzy to theirs, not a lot's going to happen. So the first thing is to bring the frenzy level down and create a calm, as I said, a calm oasis. The second point on empathy, I'm going to start with a little bit of data first, because this is a new study that just came out this year. Conclusions: patients of physicians with high empathy scores were significantly more likely to have a good control of hemoglobin A1C as well as LDL than physicians with low empathy scores. So just the ability to put yourself in another's shoes and show compassion and acceptance is another gift we give in this dynamic. And this is how I think about it. This is a cartoon of portraying the inner critic. And the inner critic is kind of an internalized critic. So people walk around with I can't do this, I'm not very good, I have failed, I've screwed up, my doctor's going to tell me I should have done better than this. So this tape is going on all the time. And that is a potent kind of negativity that really takes over our brain resources. So very hard to move forward when we're sitting in that space. When we radiate warmth, patience, empathy to another person, they take that on. It's like we radiate that out and they pick it up. And so for the moments we're with people, we can help them let go of the past, accept themselves, feel empathy towards themselves, and take their feet out of what I call kind of like having their feet in concrete. When you are feeling badly about yourself, you are stuck. It's very hard to move forward. And so we have to create the dynamic that says the past is the past, what can we do moving forward? And when you as a healthcare provider takes that stance, instead of, because it's hard not to feel impatient with people. You know, they come back over and over again and they haven't engaged in the things. It's very, very hard to do this. It's very hard to be empathetic when people haven't really engaged. But that's the gift we need to give them, because nothing will happen if they don't do that. Now, this is one of the most interesting pieces of research, and when we were talking to Carol Hess this morning at the Academy, we were talking about the Cleveland Clinic culture, which is very much a team-based culture. And so let me tell you about autonomy and then fit it in with kind of the team mandate. DC and Ryan have shown that we have 3 core universal drives that we share as humans. This is innate in our wiring. And the first and the most potent is autonomy. We see it in babies who throw their peas on the floor. We see it in our elderly parents who won't take their meds. When people don't have control, they find ways to be autonomous. If you've got teenagers, you know how that works, because when teenagers get to age 13, they are so sick and tired of being told what to do for the past 13 years that they're going to march to their own drummer. And the downside of this is that people will actually do things that are not good for them in response, in resistance to you telling them people what to do. And the good news is that in medicine, while we've trained people to be the passenger and follower, the medical expert has the wisdom and the knowledge and the answers, people do want autonomy. It is their birthright. And so if we can dig it out and bring it out, it is the drive that will move them forward. So "you're not the boss of me" is often how people, when we get to be adults, we're often very polite. When someone tells us what to do, we smile and we say, "That's very nice, thank you so much for that wonderful information." But we're just as likely to resist that because we value our autonomy so significantly. While I'm on this, I'll mention that the third drive that helps balance this in human society, or we'd have a bunch of hedonists that all want to do what they want to do, is that we also want connection. And so we will choose to give up our autonomy. We'll choose the relationship over being right in order to be connected. That's still a choice. So that's how the balance of these drives work, that we need both. We need autonomy and we need a connection, and we're always weighing up in our relationships. How much autonomy am I willing to give up in the service of this relationship?